New Zealand brush aside Ireland to top the pool. My name's Mark, let's talk rugby. New Zealand showing themselves to be a class above this Irish team today. And yeah, if we go through the main moments in the game. So Ireland actually start well, spend pretty much the entirety of the first 7 minutes in the New Zealand half. A lot of that in the 22, but great defence from New Zealand to hold them out. Didn't look like they were under pressure at many times either. They just looked very comfortable in the defence, in their system. They're very aggressive in defence, pushing Ireland back at times as well. And, yes, New Zealand's, two things really different between the teams I felt today. That New Zealand defence and then just their finishing ability compared to Ireland as well. Not to say that Ireland could have won the game. I don't think there's any chance of that, but it could have been a lot closer, but for those two things there, but the Black Ferns, they basically force a penalty. Then in the Irish half, after lifting the siege, they kick to the edge of 22. They go off their maul then with strong carries, but they knock on. But you can see the warning signs are there already that, they only get that one entry into 22 and they look like, more likely to score than Ireland did in that first 7 minutes. We then have a pause and play for the national emergency alarm in the UK was being tested, so they had to wait for that to happen. Then when we resume, Ireland win a free kick in the scrum, but they don't find touch. New Zealand run it back, they suck in the defence in the centre of the field, and then they go wide where they have numbers and, able to draw the cover, and Waka has a run in. Holmes converts from out wide for 7 points to 0. Her kicking from the tee today, absolutely immaculate as well. Just a general play was brilliant too. But yeah, it was very easy, honestly. You could see there's space out there, and Ireland are not drifting at all, and they're getting committed in the middle. They're not able to drift, and it's just so easy for them to get out there, get outside of Ireland. New Zealand then, they just up that pressure, they go up a gear. Brunt, who, a really strong carry from her, stopped just short. She was brilliant all day as well. Defensively, absolutely rock solid. And then her carries, always committing defenders and always making meters as well. And it was just so difficult, I felt, for, Ireland to cope with that on top of everything else that was going on in the game as well. To have a young player of that caliber as well, just being able to, force the issue. I'm pretty sure she got player of the match as well. But, Ireland had to, double up on her anytime she was carrying, and still she was making meters as well. And then you have other players coming in to try and, stop quick ball. Wasn't happening, but she committing a lot of defenders and creating a lot of space. And then, from that then, Ireland short the defenders, and New Zealand do get that ball out quickly, and it's Villico powers over. Ireland then, they charge the conversion, actually, and stop it going over. I don't know whether they went too early or not, but weren't called back, so it's 12 points to 0 at that stage. Ireland then working their way into the game. Some strong carries up the middle by the likes of Moore and Jugang, but every time they were going to width, New Zealand just up very quickly. And the way Ireland were doing was they were sitting deep, and they were trying to beat the blitz by sitting deep enough so that by the time the pass got out there, they still had time to use the ball. But New Zealand is just so quick off the mark that, in the wide channels, Ireland catching the ball under pressure, losing momentum, going backwards, getting swamped, maybe getting turned over. And I really felt like, Ireland, they could have at times just decided, let's set up as if we're going wide and move the ball maybe out to, the edge of the 50-meter channel, then come back inside, because that's where the space was when New Zealand blitzed, out wide. just kind of draw them out there and then come back inside and go where you're actually making the ground. But they never did it in the game. And, it's kind of, I think part of the thing about this Irish team as well is that, they're, in terms of a team, I'm not talking about the players' ages or whatever, but they're a young team in terms of, they've only, the coach has been in there a while. They've made strides as well, but they're a young team in terms of just the tactical ability on the field to be able to make changes. And, it was after half time, they started to kind of make some ground a little bit better. But we then have a lengthy break in play. Stacey Flood has to go off on a cart. Really didn't look good. You could hear her on the mic and stuff like that when she's getting treated on the field. Yeah, and it looks like maybe some kind of leg injury for her. And I'd be very surprised, honestly, if we see her again this World Cup. Wish her a speedy recovery. And also, on both sides, there were other injuries as well. And, going into quarterfinals, you never don't like to see players from any teams injured at any stage, but certainly going into knockout stages, you don't want to see players getting injured, and maybe that's the end of the tournament as well. New Zealand then turn Ireland over, and they exploit that space out wide right again. Wacky uses a pace to go outside O'Brien. Also, draws in the cover, feeds Sorensen McGee, and she just produces a lovely step. She goes down the line and in the corner, converted for 19 points to 0, and that's the halftime score. But, the cutting edge, absolutely the difference there. New Zealand just look also very comfortable in defence and always just threatening with ball in hand. Into the second half then, Ireland starts the second half similar to the way they did in the first half, applying pressure. Get back into 22 thanks to, there was a snipe from Niamh O'Dowd. It looked like actually New Zealand had kind of killed an Irish attack and looked like they were going to maybe turn the ball over, but Niamh O'Dowd then pops up the ball, snipes, but the New Zealand scramble, and Ireland can't, New Zealand on transition so much better. You feel like if that was New Zealand that broke there to try, Ireland break instead, and the scramble defence catches them. And then once Ireland go back to phase play, you just feel like, they're not going to break them down. At that stage, Dan O'Brien then kicks in behind the New Zealand defence, and probably the best chance for Ireland to score. There's no one home there. Costigan is going. She's absolutely going to get there. There's nobody else going to win the foot race for her. But then the ball takes a cruel bounce and goes dead. And that kind of summed up, Ireland's game like that. Even the things that they did well just didn't come off for them. New Zealand, then they go in again, have a maul on the left in the 22, pins in the Irish defence. Then they go wide right, whack it. Nice hands, and then Sorensen McGee has a clear run in, converted for 26 points to 0, and just too easy for New Zealand to, off first phase, being able to just break down and break through that Irish defence. Ireland then, another chance, they're applying pressure, this time through the maul, but they get held up over the line, and again, it's just that, those little margins for Ireland where, you feel like it's not, I don't think it's luck either. I feel like it's more like just that attention to detail that doesn't seem to be there for them in terms of, just making sure if you're going forward in the maul that your body positions are correct so that when you go over that line, you're actually going to score. Or if you're not going to go over and there's a big pile there, then where's the break off and then, drive over that way as well. Just feels like, a lot of things with Ireland, there are little margins there that obviously with more players now, on professional contracts, etc. If, the RFU can actually commit fully rather than committing and then backing out the way they did like a few years ago, that improvement will come in time, but it's not there at this World Cup. New Zealand then have a breakaway try ruled out for knock-on by Miller, which is very cruel because she actually started the move by turning Ireland over it looked like Ireland were finally going to get over and then she turns the ball over. They break. She's involved again after kick down, but it's slight knock on from her, and it's ruled out. But don't feel too sorry for them, because there's still time for them to get 2 more scores. They add another one off the back of a scrum in the 22. They shift it wide for Sorensen McGee to go over for a hat trick. Another, great conversion for 33-0, but another try of first phase again. Then, that was converted in the 80th minute, but Ireland don't pressure them on the restart, and New Zealand able to break from their own 22 on that. And it's Maya Joseph, I think, gets over to score that. Converted yet again from the touchline for 40 points to 0 as the full-time score. So we're going to have a look at some of the stats, and then we will, briefly talk about each of the teams as well. So give me a second while I pull up the stats here. And one thing I talked about before, where the stats actually for the women's World Cup, has absolutely improved immensely, even compared to the last World Cup. Like the last World Cup, and around that time, Six Nations and stuff like that, you'd be waiting like hours for stats to come out for games. And now, like, it's right after the game, I know I'm going to be able to go in and I'm going to be able to see the stats that are there. And yeah, if we have a look at it, first of all, we'll go through the teams. So territory 58-42 in favour of Ireland. Like, Ireland with plenty of territories. You can see possession 53-47 in favour of Ireland as well. So they had more of the ball and more of the territory, but just couldn't do anything with it. And New Zealand just so efficient with their entries into the 22. Onto attack then. So meters carried 554 to 333. So New Zealand making way more meters in the carry. You can see that every time that they were, carrying, the Irish were, having to double tackle and still going backwards. And then because of that, there weren't winning the collisions. There was absolutely no chance to compete at the ruck and slow that ball down or even go for a turnover. Whereas the opposite way, when Ireland were carrying and New Zealand could get in there and disrupt. Then runs 119 to 121. So you're talking about, for New Zealand, almost 5 meters per carry, and Ireland, less than 3. So big difference there for that. Ruck success 95% to 96. So Ireland actually winning the ruck possess, the ruck success marginally. But again, in terms of slow ball, like, Ireland had most of the slow ball, and they looked like they were under pressure to retain their ball as well. The Ferns beaten 24-14 in favour of New Zealand, and offloads 15-4 as well. Passes 208 to 139. Rucks won 76 to 95. Mauls won 3-2, and Mauls meters 4 for New Zealand and 10 for Ireland. So Ireland, in the maul, kind of like a mixed bag. They had one maul that was fairly successful that got held up over the line, and then another one that wasn't so good. New Zealand kind of come up to the middle, I think, and turned the ball over on them there as well. But I think they had 2 mauls in the build up to getting held up there as well. Onto set piece, scrum success 86 to 78 in favour of New Zealand. Scrums won 6 for New Zealand, 7 for Ireland. But Ireland, for me, were the better of the 2 teams in the scrum. They were the ones that were winning the penalties, getting the nudge on for the most part. When the replacement front rows come on, maybe it was a little bit more even, but certainly the starting front rows, Ireland were on top. It doesn't look like it from the numbers, but I think most people that watch the game would agree with that. Lineouts fairly even, and 83% each kind of tells you on that as well. 2 lineouts lost and 10 lineouts won for each of the teams. On to kicking then. 83% kicking success from the tee for New Zealand. Ireland had no kicks at goal. And then kicks from hand 24 to 23. And Ireland, it was part of their tactics to be able to, or to try to, have this kicking game with chasers. on the wings, but it really didn't work out for them. And New Zealand you can see Ireland were a bit gassed towards the end. New Zealand are actually beginning to win the kicking game as well. Onto defence then. Tackles made 150 to 133. And then turnovers 8 for New Zealand and 2 for Ireland. So again, you can see New Zealand were far more aggressive in terms of turning the ball over. Penalties conceded 11 for New Zealand and 8 for Ireland. There was a period there where Ireland were actually putting pressure on New Zealand, and it looked like maybe a yellow card might be coming, or at least a warning for a yellow card might be coming, but they weren't able to keep that pressure on. And then I think New Zealand ended up breaking away after that, as happened with most of those as well. And then if we look at kind of the individual stats as well, so we've got Sorensen McGee with 3 tries, hat-trick in the game. Then you got Roos with 19 tackles for New Zealand. Sorensen McGee, the most meters made, 114. And then Georgia Miller, 4 offloads from her as well. Very influential on the game there. And you can see there's no kind of Irish players in the stats there as well. Gainline carries then, Sorensen McGee with 9 as well. So no Irish coming up there on the top of the individual stats. And, I think that's fair enough. There weren't that many, honestly, standout performances on the Irish side. Most of the ladies who really stood out were wearing black today. So where does this kind of leave the teams going into the quarterfinals? Well, obviously New Zealand, a class above Ireland at this stage. Ireland beat them last year, but this completely different performance from New Zealand here. They're defending champions as well, but I feel like there were errors from today, and if you put that performance against England, I think England beat them. So New Zealand have to produce something more, but you feel like there's the capability there as well. The fact that if they are playing against England, like that defense, if they can keep that defense going the way it was, keep their shape and keep that aggression in terms of line speed, but also at the breakdown, competing, slowing down the ball as well, they're really going to give themselves a chance to retain their title. In terms of Ireland then, it showed Ireland, yes, they definitely progressed over the last year or so, but there's still a gulf between them and the teams at the top table, and they're not there yet, and I don't think they're going to get there this World Cup. I feel like quarterfinal is going to be as far as they go, and at the moment, while I'm recording this, France and South Africa are playing to determine who the opponents for these two teams are going to be in those quarterfinals. You would expect, not that it's guaranteed, but you would expect France to win that game. So New Zealand will be playing South Africa, who, will be, I think New Zealand against either of those teams, you fancy them to go through anyway. But if it's South Africa, South Africa kind of a coming nation in women's rugby, but you feel like New Zealand will have to beat either of them. Ireland, you might give them a chance against South Africa, but I don't think on this performance against France, I can't see Ireland, actually stepping up to the level that they need to. Yes, they can compete against France, but generally when they meet in the Six Nations, France are the winners, and I can't really see it going away from that in the quarterfinals unless Ireland can really step up. But they've got to step up, having had a lot of players injured, key players in this game as well. So it's difficult to see that. But for Ireland, I think, it's a multi-year project for them. And, this World Cup should be kind of seen as a stepping stone. So I think for Ireland, the aim now is put in a better performance than this in your quarterfinal. You're probably going to lose anyway, but at least go out with a bit of pride, get some points on the board, have some decent defensive effort, and just show a little bit more than you showed in this game as well. It was just too easy for New Zealand to beat them, and then build on that into next year's Six Nations and beyond. And, for the likes of, Ireland, Scotland, Wales, and Italy as well, the kind of the lesser nations of the women's Six Nations, I think that's where they've all got to be aiming, is that, improving year on year between these World Cups to be more competitive in the future. Because at the moment, there are 3 teams at the minute at least who you think could win this World Cup, like England, massive favourites. Then you got New Zealand and Canada next after that, and beyond them you can't, unless they're like, the problem is any other team outside of those 3 don't just have to produce one major upset. They've got to produce at least 2 to get the hands on the trophy. And that's what's kind of, facing every other nation, including Ireland. But, hopefully, fingers crossed, Ireland can improve and at least, restore a bit of pride in their quarterfinal. But let me know what you think down in the comments.